Well, greetings and salutations, test takers. This is the Series 7 Guru coming to you from my studio here in fabulous Las Vegas with another explication request. If you have an explication request, you can send that to explicationrequest@guruexamprep.com. This is for the SIE and for Series 7. Be careful on questions like this. This is a relatively easy question, and sometimes they try and do that Jedi mind trick and kind of send you down some path that isn't what the question's about. As I always say, RTFQ, read the full question. LMN Corporation has 10 million shares of stock outstanding. LMN intends to offer an additional 2 million shares through a stock rights offering to raise additional capital. That makes sense, by the way. It makes sense that if LMN is looking to raise money, that they first go to their existing shareholders and say, would you provide us with additional equity financing? Not only does that make sense because the people already in the hot water with you are the people most likely to provide the additional funding, but also your shareholders, the existing shareholders, have what's called a preemptive right. Their preemptive right is their right to maintain proportion ownership in the corporation. So they have the first right of refusal on the issuance of these new shares. And the mechanism is a rights offering. You know, the main test question on SIE and Series 7 is that rights are short term and make sense because they need the equity financing and need it rather quickly. And at issuance, they're exercisable below the current market price. That is the main test point. And then you got to be able to contrast rights with warrants. Warrants are long-term, exercise above, usually used as a sweetener in terms of a bond underwriting or something like that. Okay, your customer owns 500,000 shares. Wow, good customer here, right? Looks like he owns 5% of that. You know, and if he doesn't buy any new shares, he doesn't have to. So kind of a very important concept. You know, we can't demand additional capital. We can ask politely. And so the shares are non-assessable. So this guy could choose, your customer, to either maintain or not maintain his proportion ownership. If he doesn't maintain his proportion ownership, he's going to own 500,000 of 12 million, right? So, you know, he gets the chance to pony up some more money to maintain his proportion ownership. So how many stock rights will your customer receive when the rights are issued? So that's the trick here. As many shares as you have, that's how many rights you have. So the answer to this question is we have 500,000 rights. Now, the person who sent in this application request, I probably made it more difficult than it really was. Here, to maintain a 5% ownership position in a company that has 12 million shares outstanding, I would need another 100,000 shares here, right? So he has an opportunity now to buy another 100,000 shares at less than the current market price. It's going to cost him some money. So that's a different question, right? How did Dean get the 100,000 shares? Well, 500,000 rights, and he has needs to be able to buy 100,000 shares to maintain his proportion ownership. And so that means it's going to take 5 rights to get an additional share. So if he wants to maintain his proportion ownership, he'd send 500,000 rights in, uh, you know, 100,000 times whatever the subscription price is into the rights transfer agent, and he will have maintained his proportion ownership. So a good thing to remember here about what can happen is T. You know, this customer, he does want to exercise, could trade these rights to someone else. He could exercise, we just talked about that, or he could let them expire. He doesn't have to do anything if he wants. The rights are going to have a value, right? They have a intrinsic value because you're going to be able to buy the stock at less than the market price. So at issuance, they're going to have intrinsic value. So sounds kind of like an option, does it not? Except this is coming directly from the issuer and it's not, you know, like a call or a put or something like that. Anyways, hope you found that helpful. I think this is a surprisingly easier question than it first appears. And so that's probably why somebody was stumbling over that. The big takeaway, remember, is as many shares as you have, that's how many rights you have. The answer to the question is 500,000 rights. Different question, how many rights does it take to get an additional share? In this case, it's 5, but that's usually given information. I'm wishing for you a dream draw. I doubt you're going to have to do 3 theoretical value of the right, X or cum, but you know, who knows? Maybe you'll send me an explication request for that. Remember, inch by inch, your SIE exam or your Series 7 exam is a cinch. Yard by yard, your exam is hard. and I will see you for the next explication request.